Using a 15mm socket, go ahead and put it on this bolt right here. And we're going to go ahead and rotate this clockwise, take the tension off the system here, take that belt, and just loosen that up. Using a 13mm deep socket, I'm going to remove this center bolt right here. And remove that tensioner. Now we'll just go ahead and remove the belt and set that aside. Now we're going to go ahead and drain the radiator, open up the petcock, and drain out the antifreeze. You can use a catch can or a drip pan. I'm going to go ahead and close the drain. Using a 13mm socket, we're going to go ahead and remove all of the bolts around the perimeter of the water pump. Once you get them started, just work your way around. Most of these you'll be able to loosen by hand once you get them to a certain point. And you still want to have a catch can underneath the vehicle, because once we break the water pump free, there'll probably still be some residual coolant behind the water pump coming out of the engine block. All right, with the bolts loose, depending on the model application, the bolts may be longer or shorter around the perimeter of the water pump. So what I like to do is remove one, insert it in. Remove the next one, and you can see this one here is longer. So we're just gonna put the placement of the bolts where they're supposed to go. Makes for installation a lot easier. Gonna go ahead and use the dead blow and just give this a couple loving taps. Now we can go ahead and remove the water pump. Now what you want to do is go ahead and dry this out the best you can. And we're going to go ahead and start cleaning the face of the block here. You want to make sure that this is smooth and clean before we reinstall the new water pump and gasket. You want to go ahead and line up the gasket. Make sure that the little ear tab pops right in there. Press that into place. Work your way around until this gasket is fully seated. The gasket is formed, so it should line right up in place or with where it needs to go. All right, go ahead and feed the water pump back down. Get that lined up. I'm going to start one of the short bolts, goes in that top center. Get that lined up and get threaded a few threads in there. The three longest bolts, one goes right here to the right of the top center, and then the other two are directly on the left hand side. So long bolt, and long bolt. The rest will all be short bolts. Get those started, and we'll continue with the shorter bolts. Now I just want to go ahead and snug these bolts down, and I'll come back with the torque specs. All right, we'll now go ahead and torque down the water pump bolts to 40 foot-pounds. There's no particular pattern on this. So before installation, you want to use your indexing slot here and line it up with the bolt down below. So go ahead and set that up and in there. Make sure that it sits flat up against the block. And then insert your bolt and thread that in as far as you can. Once you have that snug down, you want to go ahead and torque it down to 30 foot-pounds. Once you have the belt lined up, go ahead and bring your tensioner on up. I'm going to go ahead and remove the cap. Set that aside. I'm going to go ahead and grab a clean funnel. I'm going to go ahead and start filling the system. All right, so once we have this filled up, we did fill it just above the cold line here because once we start up the engine, it's going to suck that down, but you want to make sure that you put the cap on because this is a vacuum sealed system and it will not pull that coolant down if it doesn't have the full vacuum. Make sure that's tight. I'm going to go ahead and start up the vehicle and let the engine pull us down and purge any air bubbles out itself.